Hi everyone, Selena here. Great to see you again. Thank you for joining me. Obviously, I'm here from the Reflective Teacher podcast to talk about this week's episode. Did you tune in? Did you hear that amazing statistic that Eddie shared? South Australia, 48% of our students left last year from school without any qualification at all. Now that, when I heard that, made me really shiver. I was really quite about it. I don't know how it makes you feel. 12 years of schooling and no qualification to show for it. That's a real issue, isn't it? We've got a lot of disengaged teenagers out there, disengaged, disaffected young people who really don't seem to be able to connect with what we're doing in schools at the moment. As a high school teacher myself, an English and drama teacher, I've definitely experienced that, most definitely. And I've spent a lot of time in my career working on my relationships with my students and revamping curriculums to try and help them engage with what we're doing. Obviously, we're all doing that, but it's super hard. Now, Professor Eddie Blass is a local educator and a professor of leadership development at Torrens University. I met Eddie at a pitch competition we were both involved in a year or so ago, and she is an inspiration. She's an education consultant in online curriculum design. And she moved to Adelaide originally to join the Laureate Group as acting academic director at Torrens Uni. So her background is all about curriculum design and engaging people online. So her insights into how we can use modern technology and change the curriculum are just amazing. And what she's coming up with really blows me away. So during the podcast, Eddie talked about that a lot, and I would definitely encourage you to head to edufolios.org/008 to get in and listen to that. And of course, she also shared a free lesson idea for us to use with our students so we can practice some of these new ways of working. Why wouldn't you want to grab that? Again, just go to edufolios.org/008 to grab that. Now, this week, we're trying some new software. To bring Eddie in, we're going to use a brand new piece of kit. That's why I've got my earpiece in, so we don't get any feedback. So bear with us if there are any technical problems. I'm telling the universe there won't be. This is going to be problem-free. But just know, I promised in my second podcast I was going to try hard. I hope this isn't one of my 5 fails, but we'll see. I'm putting it myself out there and we're giving it a go, okay? Because today you're going to get an opportunity to talk to and listen to Eddie. What an amazing opportunity. And as usual, Matt is here in the chat. I don't know if he said hello or not. And he's here to answer any questions and direct you to any resources that Eddie and I may mention. Good luck to him keeping up with the two of us. We'll see how he fares. Okay? If you're not watching this live, that's okay. Come back anytime. Watch it at your leisure. Watch the captions and pretend you're at your lecture and doing something else. Whatever you need to do, we're here. Please feel free to comment anyway. I will keep an eye on those comments for the next couple of weeks. And if you have any questions for Eddie, I'm sure she will not mind if I direct them at you. We're both here to answer those questions for you. So, for those of you who are here online at the moment, if you're around, it would be great if you could choose an emoticon or a GIF to tell us how you're feeling about the fact that 48% of kids in South Australia do 12 years of education and walk away with no qualification. I don't know what I would choose. That's going to take a bit of faffing. I'm not sure I could actually select, but it was something dramatic and despairing, I think, for me. And if you're watching this later, feel free to add your gifts whenever you're ready. Okay, so Eddie is here, never fear. She's going to help us come up with some strategies to solve these problems. So let's try this new technology and make sure that we've got Eddie live. Okay, here we go. Here goes nothing. Well, hey, Eddie, how are you?
Good, thank you, and thank you for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you here. I really enjoyed doing that podcast with you. As you know, you sent shivers down my spine several times. So it's great to have this opportunity to talk a little bit more about what you've been doing. So I
Thank you.
thought I thought we might start with that statistic that we're all horrified by. You for those of you who want to know where that's come from, I want to reassure you that Eddie shared that paper with me, and you can find it if you head to edufolios.org/008. Scroll all the way to the bottom, and you will find that report. So, Eddie, tell us about that report. I mean, is this new information? Is it a new problem? Please tell me it's not getting worse.
No, I think I mean, if you look at the statistics, it looks relatively static. I think what's interesting is I don't think it's been reported in that way previously.
Okay.
In that I think people have looked at dropout rates from year to year to year, whereas this is actually completion rate of a SACE, and only 52%. 52 to 53% in the last 3 years have completed their SACE from having started at year 8.
Okay.
So that, I mean, I just think that's a very, very worrying trend.
Yeah, I agree. Is there a reason for that, do you think? I'm just thinking that obviously there are vocational subjects that wouldn't be assessed with the SACE banner. Is that part of it? And we're not quite looking at such a bleak situation? Or, how does that look?
Vocational subjects can actually be counted within SACE for
Okay.
up to a certain percentage of it.
Right.
As can other sort of things like Duke of Edinburgh and stuff can all contribute to a SACE qualification. So to be honest, it's bleak. I just find it very bleak. Because previously we were working on dropout rates, and that was 1 in 4 between years 10 and 12. But actually, if you go back and look at completion rates, you're almost at 1 in 2, which means every 2-child family, you're looking at one kid not making it, which I just think is, worrying, very worrying. Look, and the reasons behind it, I mean, nobody's done that piece of research specifically to look at that I'm aware of, but there has been broader research on why schools are why kids are disengaging from school.
I'm sure the schools are not
And
disengaging.
apart from apart from reasons outside of school, like family, life happens to kids. We appreciate that. It's also to do with the curriculum and then disengaging, not finding it relevant, getting bored. A lot of schools are now banning phones in the classroom. Kids have to put them in their lockers, rather than looking at how can we use the technology in order to keep the kids engaged in the classroom.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of the problem
that.
is that, I think a lot of the problem is that early e-learning and online teaching has basically tried to replicate what's done in the classroom online. And you can't do that. You actually have to use the technology for what the technology can do, and the teacher for what the teacher can do. They don't replace each other.
No.
They should be working together in tandem. And that's where I think a lot of it's gone wrong.
Okay. So do you think from that conversation that when a lot of teachers are using technology, they're not quite getting it right? And could that be creating some of these problems?
Yeah, there was a really interesting report published by Fujitsu just this week. So I can send it to you. It was a free download. So
yeah.
You can add it.
Yeah.
Although we don't talk about it in the podcast. But that looks at how teachers in 5 or 6 countries, how teachers are looking at technology from primary, secondary, and in tertiary education, and their digital literacy. And it shows statistics that, I mean, I've not got the report bang in front of me, so I might be a little bit off my percentages, but about 90% of teachers want personalized learning plans, but only 30% believe it's possible.
Wow.
Well, the Inventorium does that, and it's actually one of the things when we show people the Inventorium, they're really impressed at how it does it, and they realize you can manage it in a classroom. You can have 20, 30 kids in a classroom working on personal plans and still be in control of your classroom.
Yeah.
So, teachers they haven't seen how the technology can enable these types of things, so there's a slight disbelief in it. The other interesting thing in the report that it has a reading on digital literacy and how students fare compared to teachers. And in primary school, the teachers are much better than the students. You kind of expect that. The kids haven't really had time to learn their digital literacy. By the time you get to secondary school, the students there's twice as many students are good and excellent at it as teachers. You've got about a third of teachers being confident that they're digitally literate, and over 60% of students being confident that they're digitally literate. And I think that fear of the unknown, or that the kids are going to be better at something than the teacher is scary in the classroom. I'd be worried if I was walking into something and was worried that the kids could be ahead of me in terms of just the process of how we're trying to teach them. And I think that's holding things back as well. Kids get used to technology outside of the classroom, and there's lots of stimulus. They're doing lots of things, got lots of web pages and stuff open simultaneously. And then they go into school, they lose the technology, and everything's very analog. And doesn't matter how good a teacher you are, their brains are getting bored because there just isn't that constant stimulus from so many different angles.
Right. So whereas some schools' response to that has been to ban all the technology to help their brains to understand that's not the way we work in 2019 and the future, what we're actually saying is we need to meet them where they're at. Is that right?
Yeah, it's meet them where they're at and use the technology in a positive manner. I mean, I remember when I was lecturing, and I would say things like, "Oh, I remember seeing this." People would start Googling on their laptops and stuff while I was lecturing to find the reference for me. So I'd almost get them doing the searches, doing the sort of work rather than giving it all to them, so that I wasn't the one doing the work. I'd even say, who can find a good title on this type of topic, and see what they can find, so that you actually channel the students to use the technology in a positive way during the sort of class process. And in the inventorium, there's lots of video for the students to watch, which you can't always do in a classroom. Have students watching different bits of video. Can't have students working at their own pace. And that's what the technology can do that you can't do without it. So it's really looking at how technology can benefit the teacher, and then them utilizing that rather than them being worried that it's going to somehow challenge them.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit more about, obviously you've identified this as an opportunity, and you haven't just sat there and written another research paper on it. You've actually come up with an entire solution for us. Thank you very much. And that is called the Inventorium. So for those of you who haven't yet listened to the episode for this week, which you can find at edufolios.org/008, the Inventorium is Eddie's brainchild. She came up with it to solve this problem. So you don't even have to worry about learning about the technology, because Eddie's done that for you. Awesome. Okay, and she's even got a course in the Inventorium to teach you how she did it and what you should be doing with it. And it's amazing. Great PD hours. So definitely check it all out, because it's amazing. And I know that in the podcast, Eddie, when we had this conversation before this paper had even been released, you said that this problem was not about teachers or the schools they're at. This is about the curriculum, and that you focused on that alongside the technology. And one of the things you've given everybody for free is an activity about totem poles, because what I got from the podcast is personal development, research project, that kind of stuff fits beautifully inside the Inventorium. And we talked a little bit about technology's role in developing those personal skills, because often people think, well, it should be face to face. That's what personal means. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Is it possible to teach personal things? Personal self-identity questions, brand, where am I going? How are you tackling that? And is that important?
Yeah, thank you. I think to tackle it? A lot of people say it isn't. A lot of people have the view that online learning can only be for areas where there is one correct answer. And then you set people a quiz and they drag and drop the correct answer into the correct box type thing as a test. And the totem pole exercise, for example, is a really good demonstrator of how you can do something completely creative with a drag and drop. Because effectively there are images of totems, or the kids can find their own, can upload their own images and then drag and drop them to form their own totem pole, looking at the kind of spiritual well-being and who their sort of guardian angels are and how those are represented. So you're actually getting the class to think about broader issues in terms of their values, their belief, whether or not they, what they believe spiritually to a degree, without it being about named religion. But, the idea of who or what type of spirits they would want to be looking over them, and which ones they would prioritize, and really get a sense of their values and who they are and how they identify themselves, and then create an image of that. And how they create that image, there's a drag and drop exercise there, but equally they could draw something of their own. They could make some sort of video or physically create something and video it, photograph it, put it up, whatever. So you actually are allowing the children to use the technology in such a way that they create something they wouldn't have been able to create through you telling them to do something sitting at a desk on their own. And then they get to talk about it with their friends, and they post it up in a wiki and they chat about it. And so that, the whole process of using the online is that rather than kids being limited to a conversation at a set point in time, they can look at something, go away, reflect on it, come back, post something else. And taking the synchronicity out of the conversation in many ways can improve the learning and reflection within the conversation.
Okay, any thoughts on why that might be?
Well, it allows those kids who aren't the quickest and most confident and most extrovert in class to join the conversation, whereas they might not physically get the opportunity in the classroom, because you tend to get some personalities that like to speak up more and more forcefully. Secondly, any kids who've got any language difficulties have more time to think about how they're going to articulate themselves. And some kids will actually plan what they're going to say before they put it into the chat space. So they check they've got it right. And so they have that opportunity to articulate themselves and be visible in a means that they're happy with, rather than feeling it's on the spot under pressure. A lot of kids seem to suffer anxiety at the moment with communication skills. There's a group called Year 13. They're based out of New South Wales, but they are interstate. And they work with young people who are finishing school and really don't know what to do next. And they've done a couple of reports on the ATAR. The second one is called Beyond the ATAR. And they have some frightening statistics in that about 70% of teenagers self-reporting mental health issues around anxiety, and communication skills being one of the key things.
Now, you see, some people would say that's being caused by the technology because they're not switching off and their brains are always busy and they're not connecting and spending time with themselves and well-being. Do you have any thoughts on that? I'm just thinking of I'm playing devil's advocate.
And you know what? I completely agree. I think that the fact that people's mobile phone is an extension of their hand, and that they're always visible, that Facebook, social media is always there. People are always judging them. People can post pictures of you on Facebook that you haven't given them permission to do. And people, it's kind of out of control. So people are constantly visible. I would not want to be a teenager these days with a mobile phone. I mean, it's a scary place to be. And I absolutely think that's impacted on it. Kids will text rather than talk. And, when I remember showing my age now, but used to be the telephone would ring in the house and we'd all run physically to the telephone to see who it was. And the exciting thing was who got the phone call. Now, if your phone goes and it's like no caller ID and you don't know who it is, you don't answer it. Because you tend to wait, oh, who's that? You worry about it. And so even just that whole premise on which we're prepared to communicate with people has changed. And so for young people who will text each other rather than have a conversation, actually developing alternative communication skills and, in a way showing how the technology can support them in doing that, I think it's very important, rather than it always being, a threat, because really, in many ways, the mobile phone is a huge threat.
I agree. And I think one of the things we talked about that I'm not sure it actually made the cut in the podcast. So we talked a long time. It was great, and I had to pick the best bits. But there was a really great moment in there where you talked about one of the modules about how they present themselves. And I will let you explain it because you'll do a much better job than I. But so you know which bit. It was the moment where you were telling me about how you were using media to help them look at some females who are very successful, but perhaps not as successful as communicating that in their manners. And I'm thinking about this in line with what we're talking about texting and things, and technology being the evil that's causing this, because that's kind of the antithesis. You're using technology to help them have the cognitive space to work out what's going wrong. Do you know what I'm talking about there? Have I given you enough clues?
Yeah. It's in the module of who do I want to be? Yeah. Okay. And it's basically, we've got 2 TED Talks by women from a very similar demographic, both highly successful in areas that are generally dominated by men. And one of the women tells her story from a really positive space of what she's achieved and have helped her. And the other woman tells her story in terms of all the problems she's had to overcome. And they're actually very similar stories in many ways, but the way they're presented is so different. It really kind of focuses you on how are you presenting yourself in your narrative? Are you presenting yourself as a victim? Are you presenting yourself as a survivor? Are you presenting yourself as somebody who's just going to make everything happen because you're that positive and encouraging? Are you someone who is, it's all about you, or is it all about everyone who's working with you? And just the way the narratives are presented is a really good example of how you can tell a story from different angles to get a different response. And so it's really trying to make people think about their story.
Yeah, and I think what I love about that is all the non-verbal cues. I'm a drama teacher, of course I'm going to love this, but not just the position of the narrative from the English teacher perspective, but also because it's video, how you hold yourself, what your body language is doing, what your face is doing, because all of these things are things that you have to learn as you become an adult. You have to realize that, I don't know if everybody in Australia ever got to watch Kevin and Perry. I'm hoping it came here because when I was a kid, that was the most amazing comedy. Go YouTube Kevin and Perry. They're beautiful, lovely boys, and they turn 13 and suddenly they're like stomping around. Right? So we have to learn how that behavior affects how people see us. And the fact that you have these women who are very successful, who are choosing to communicate their narrative differently, but with different body language, different anything, that's really an impressive and important lesson to learn. And I think using video that you can pause, rewind, reflect on, just gives you that space to connect with the tiny details that you might otherwise feel. You might look at someone and think, oh, don't like them, but not have thought about what's sending you that message, if you see what I mean. So I think that's incredibly powerful.
And there's also a section on introducing yourself, which really focuses people on the fact that they need different introductions for different contexts.
Yes.
And they need to present themselves differently in different contexts, and practicing those introductions and getting feedback and videoing themselves and seeing, so that it may sound silly to stand in front of the mirror and practice your introduction if you were going for a job interview as opposed to your introduction if you're going to a party. But until you're actually in the job interview, you don't know how to do it.
And it's really
most people screw up the first couple. Yeah, because most people will screw up the first couple of job interviews purely by introducing themselves badly.
Oh.
And who gives them that feedback?
You see, and this is really valuable stuff that really isn't anywhere in the curriculum. Am I right? So, you know, where is it connecting with SACE? Because I know that you began, as you talked about in the podcast, rejecting all qualifications because research was showing qualifications won't be a problem in the future, won't be a big thing, which might be a good news for 48% of South Australian teenagers. I don't know. But then you realise that today it is something quite significant. And so you've done something really amazing, which is map your alternative vision back to SACE so it can actually be used for credit. So tell me about how you've managed to reconcile a very structured curriculum with this new way of working. And I'm guessing the technology has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, look, and I mean, it's not an easy mapping. So, you know, it is quite, you know, there is some work for teachers in using it in taking the evidence from the portfolio and ticking it off against the SACE criteria. But in fairness to SACE, it is about the most flexible and adaptable of all the high school leaver certificates. So, you know, good on you, SACE board. There is a lot of freedom and flexibility there. We have way more than 10 credits of PLP in the inventorium because we have who am I, who do I want to be, who do others think I am, introducing yourself, my future career, creating your future. There is so much personal development stuff there. But you can actually only get 10 credits in SACE. Yeah. But you can also do community projects, integrated learning. There are other opportunities that the curriculum can count towards that we're mapping to. Yeah. So there's no difficulty in that. But we have gone through and literally said which activities provide the opportunity to meet the criteria, the assessment criteria of SACE.
Yeah, and I guess if you are out there thinking, well, how has she done that? Well, the best thing to do would be to go listen to the podcast that we recorded, right? Because we talk about that a little bit in there. So edufolios.org/008 to hear more about what Eddie's been doing with this, and also how you can get involved with that, because Eddie has actually turned the inventorium into something called a cooperative, which means you can own part of it and help grow it, which is amazing. It's all coming from a really beautiful place, trust me, and you will definitely want to hear more about this because it's going to save you time. It's going to give you a whole heap of inspiration about how you can meet students' particular needs with personalized learning plans. You know, even if you are one of those 30% who don't believe it's possible, or was it the other way around? I can't remember. Was it 70% who didn't believe it was possible? Especially, well, Eddie can show you how it is. And she's done the work for you, so you can take a leap of faith and go and give it a go. And if you head to edufolios.org/008, there are links at the bottom to help you join up, go and have a look, and get a free guest account. Is that right, Eddie?
Yeah. Jump on, have a look, contact me. More than happy to come and talk to you about how it can be used to help your school.
Absolutely, and I think it's incredibly powerful. I wouldn't have Eddie here talking about it if I didn't believe in it, trust me. And obviously as a lecturer in EdTech integration, it makes me very excited in terms of the examples of technological, pedagogical content knowledge and all of those lovely things as well. So it's really good work. Look, Eddie, we've been talking now for half an hour. I think this has been an incredibly valuable conversation, and I want to thank you very much for giving your time to us again today. I want to encourage everyone out there, whether watching live or later, to head over to edufolios.org/008 because there's that free teaching resource with the totem pole that comes with worksheets for your students and a link to a PowerPoint presentation that they can use and manipulate to make the totem. So they've just done all that work for you. Go and grab that. And I know that's an example of the kind of things that you'll find in the inventorium too. So that's very generous. Thank you. And also there will be the link to the report. I will go in and add the link to this new report that came out this week as well, Eddie, so that everyone can have a look at that, because I think there's some interesting conversations to be had from that as well. Thank you again, Eddie. I'll let you go and I will flick back over to me. Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow, so that was a great conversation with Eddie Blass there. I'm really, we're so lucky to have her talking here because she is so incredibly knowledgeable on this. And as I say, if you're not watching live, please feel free to add comments and questions and I will field them her way. She will not mind being in touch with you at all. Now, I will be here again next week on a Thursday, but just to make life a bit tricky, I'm going to move the time that we meet. In truth, my son's swimming lesson has moved, so it's going to be complicated. Life is happening. So instead of 7 o'clock, we're going to make it 8 o'clock. So Melbourne, 8:30, Perth, dinner time. You can come and join us. And of course, we'll be recording the sessions live. So come back here next Thursday for another short slot of professional development. And if you want this to count for more than the 33 minutes, 44 seconds and counting, listen to last week's podcast where I explained to you exactly how to turn this 30 minutes of PD into unlimited hours of reflection that count towards your registration requirement. All the podcasts are available on iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. And of course, all you need to do is look for the Reflective Teacher podcast. Thank you again for joining us.